from over east though, Sydney and Melbourne and places like that, is where all the big action is really. These documentaries are normally held, these panel type documentary programs. So it comes up with a number on the bottom and it says phone in if you'd like to ask the people some questions, and of course it says not applicable in Western Australia because of the time difference. It's a very big country, 2 or 3 hour time difference between the east and west coast. So if you ever see any of these documentaries and you have an interest in the subject and you think what I've had to say is food for thought, you might want to consider giving them a ring and just pitching that question, because I have never seen it anywhere. They just put a line straight through the idea that any visiting alien species might be hostile, and I think really that is a huge mistake. Oh, there's just one other thing I've thought of. I don't know how long this has run for so far, but if you're getting bored, you can always hit stop, can't you, or eject, or whatever you do with these YouTube things. I'll take a bold step into the 21st century one day. One of the scientists on that program, one of these impeccably qualified astrophysicists, was saying that SETI had heard 2 or 3 good candidate signals, and that had been repeated. But she didn't give any details. She wasn't asked any sensible questions from the audience. So I flicked an email to the SETI Institute and I got a response. I didn't get a response. I initially flicked an email to this scientist and I didn't get a response. So I flicked an email to another well-known SETI scientist that gets on the television fairly frequently. He's obviously passionate about it. And I thought, well, if I'm going to get a response, it would probably be from this guy. So I flicked him an email and asked him questions. The questions were, were these signals narrow band? Were they in the water hole? Now, those of you that have an interest in this subject, will know that the water hole is an area in the radio spectrum between the hydrogen and hydroxyl lines, about 1420 megahertz up to, I think it's about 1600 megahertz. Off the top of my head, I can't remember now really, but there's a block of frequencies there that there's 2 nice big spikes in the noise form if you look on a spectrum analyzer. And they say, well, that would be a very good place for extraterrestrials to try and attract attention. So one of the questions was, were the signals in there? Another one was there any information? Was there any modulation on the signal? Were they narrow band? And was there any modulation on the signal? Now, it's generally thought that narrow band radio signals, narrow bandwidth radio signals, don't occur in nature. Signals from pulsars and the quasars and all this other stuff that's out in space that chunks out all this radio energy. It does it over a very broad spectrum. It would take up 2 or 3 radio dials as an example, whereas a narrow band signal would be the individual radio stations within one of those radio dials. And the WOW signal that you probably heard of was picked up by Berkeley's Big Ear back in the 70s, I think. Huge signal, came from, they think it came from somewhere in the region of Sagittarius. Qualified in that it was a narrow band signal, and one of the questions I asked about the signals that they'd heard was, was it narrow band? Did it contain any modulation? Now the modulation, if you listen to a radio station, the modulation is the music, the speech, that's the program information, and that's encoded onto the actual narrow bandwidth radio signal. And I said, was there any modulation? Because although it's thought that narrow band signals don't occur in nature, who knows, you might get some weird situation where it does. If you have a narrow band signal and it's encoded with modulation, then you know 100% sure, for sure and certain, that it's a synthetically generated, structured signal. Someone's built a transmitter, it's modulating the signal with this information and casting it out into space. And the response was that she was talking historically, that the equipment wasn't set up to detect modulation, unfortunately. I can't remember if it was in the water hole. In the water hole, but it was certainly if that equipment had been geared up to detect modulation, we would know by now for sure and certain 100% that it was a synthetically generated structured signal. So that's a real shame. Anyway, this new stuff that's being built, and I got a response from this guy the next day. He's obviously is very passionate about it. I flicked him an email to thank him for the response. This new SKA, I believe, is this new large radio telescope that's being built. Half of it's being built fairly close to where I am at the moment, actually out in in Western Australia, out in the boondocks in Western Australia. Went very, very radio quiet. And there are other parts of it. Another significant part of it is being built in South Africa, and another part in New Zealand. And I believe this is going to be geared up to look for modulation patterns within signals. And another interesting thing too, I went to a talk a few years ago now at the observatory in Perth, and there was an astrophysicist there, one of the universities in Australia. I can't remember if it was one of the local ones, but he was fairly involved in SETI, or interested in SETI. And he said yes, at the SKA site, there's a. So I'm looking here, there's a railway crossing, there's a train there, but the lights aren't flashing. No, looks okay, looks like it's stopped. Sorry about the sorry about the commentary. What was I saying? Actually, I should have spun the camera around and let you see that. That's quite good. This is one of these iron ore trains. There you go. There he is there. He's driving alongside him now. These are quite large, these trains. They're nowhere near as large as the ones up north. Still going. And just as an aside, if you ever see, there's a little bit of a video clip about the largest, heaviest train in the world. It was done about 10 years ago now. I think it was done. It might have been done early this century by BHP Iron Ore. 7.3 kilometre train, 3 tonnes under 100,000 tonnes. Ran from Yandy Mine out to, didn't run from Newton, I can't remember now, up to Port Hedland. Anyway, if you, oh, you wouldn't know my name, of course, yeah, but my name appears in the credits on the technical support section for that, on that video. But I digress. This chap was saying that there's another piece of equipment that's being built out of the SKA site, and this is going to look at a much lower block of frequencies, because they normally tend to, radio telescopes tend to look in the microwave spectrum. Whereas this piece of equipment they're setting up is going to be looking at frequencies, for those of you that are technically minded, between 80 and 250 megahertz. And apparently they've never done this before. I said, what is that? You say you're looking for alien broadcasting now? And he laughed, but he said, well, yeah, maybe. But I suppose you never know your luck. I mean, that's what most of our broadcasting is. Well, certainly our FM broadcasting between 88 and 108 megahertz. And here in Australia, there's fairly large television transmitters broadcasting on the VHF band between probably 160 to 200 megahertz. Anyway, this is me rambling now. Sorry, I'll get to the point where I'm rambling, I'm going to hit stop. Or I think I'm rambling. You may think I've been rambling for the last however long this has run for, 20 minutes or so, I suspect. So there's some interesting stuff going on, and I saw in the West Australian newspaper last Friday, I think it was. What's the date today? It's the 10th of October 2012. So just last Friday, a few days ago, it's Wednesday, that the spotter scope for the SKA out at Buladi Station is where the SKA is going here in Western Australia. If you've got if you fancy looking it up, it's in the middle of nowhere. Was opened on Friday, and I thought that's a strange expression to use. Opened. I wonder if that means it's open to the public, or whether it's if they just mean that it's been commissioned. When I read the newspaper article, that's what it said on the news. When I read the newspaper article, it said it had consists of something like 36 fairly large dishes, and even though it's only a spotter for the SKA, it's a fairly significant radio astronomy instrument in itself. But they've built these couple of big complexes here in Australia for the supercomputer. One of them is going to house a supercomputer that does all the processing. They've got a 6 terabyte link from the bush down to Perth for it. It's actually going to be controlled from Jodrell Bank in England, believe it or not. Amazing, isn't it? It's 21st century stuff. But the actual SKA itself, they're not going to start construction on that until 2016. The spotter scope will be up, and now that it's commissioned, it's actually going to be working and doing stuff, presumably, as I'm speaking now. I think they've got to finish the supercomputer in Perth. I think that's incomplete at the moment. I could be wrong, but I think it's very, very good that this stuff is going on, and it's all very, very interesting stuff. Well, there you go. There's my 2 bobs worth on UFOs, aliens, alien visitation, alien invasion, and SETI. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll just leave you with a quick look at there's the view there. You can see we're coming up to a town. There's a big radio tower up there, communications tower. As we get closer, we'll see there's probably 2 or 3 more. I'll just lower the camera because people may not want to be filmed. They may relentlessly hunt me down, and I may hear a knock on my door in the middle of the night. Wake up 3 days later in a dungeon on the other side of the planet, being mercilessly beaten by someone wearing a fez. There we go. Now this is not the outback, although this probably would qualify as the bush. This has certainly got too much green stuff on it to be classed as the outback. That's one of the communications towers there for the iron ore railway. I think iron ore and wheat, sorry. Yeah, it's iron ore and wheat. There's no passengers on it. Well, thank you for watching. Cheerio.